Welcome to the review of the first Just for Fun competition. We had 16 entries and 15 votes. The image with the most likes will be made the banner image for our pages for next week. To start us off, I will run the images to remind you of what was entered. We'll now run through the images again, in some cases including comments from the authors on what they did to achieve the final image. Flowers by Patricia. Taken on her iPhone. Lockdown by Wendy. Narrowboat memorabilia by Loz. Rum Shack by Roger. Wooden ice cream by Peter. Peter took some of his granddaughter's wooden ice cream shapes and used natural light and a black backing board. Using a 2 seconds shutter speed and f6.5 on 24mm, he applied some simple ICM intentional camera movement. In Lightroom he applied several adjustments, including adjusting highlights and shadows, haze reduction, increasing vibrance, some individual color channel adjustments and some dodging and burning. He then rotated and cropped to get the final image. He took around 60 shots to try and get a reasonable effect. Some were more interesting than others. Pestle and Mortar by Steve. This was Steve's first attempt at focus stacking. It was photographed using his mirrorless Canon EOS M6 Mark II, which has a focus bracketing mode, with a Sigma 56mm f1.4 lens set at f1.4. You set the spacing and the number of images you want and then just press the shutter button. He took 30 images, the first focused on the front edge of the bowl, the last on the back edge. He opened Affinity Photo and selected the new focus merge, then selected the 30 images and Affinity did the rest. All images were raw, each image about 27 megabytes. He used a Folio Studio with their black interior and 2 LED strip lights, but had to tweak the white balance significantly in post-processing. He realized afterwards that he should have set the white balance in camera. Probably more than you needed to know, but somehow he have time available. Venus by Martin. Taken with a Nikon P900 at 2000mm. The following images each received 1 nomination. Marvelous by Ken. Ken took a close-up, macro shot of a marble. The colors were then enhanced in post-production. Light at the End of the Tunnel by Paul. Paul's image was created using a few pieces of Brio wooden train track, obviously one of which is a tunnel. They were placed on a piece of black card on his dining table in the conservatory. Behind it he hung a large piece of black cloth, lit using a small LED torch, which he placed it so it could be seen shining into the tunnel. He had his Canon 5D Mk4 with Tamron 15 to 30mm lens on a tripod with the wide-angle lens set at 15mm, positioned very close to the tunnel. Processing was done using affinity with levels adjustment and making it black and white. He merged with a second brighter image to make the front face of the tunnel visible. He took the photo when it was dusk to ensure darkness. The settings were 1.3 seconds, f13, ISO 100 and for the front of the tunnel exposed for 30 seconds. Moth Orchid. By Margret. Seaside Beer. By Gary Wood. At work on a Friday we have been having a dress-down day with a £1 donation to a local charity. Since the lockdown we're all working from home, so some bright spark had the idea to have a themed dress-up Friday. Last week the theme was beach wear. They said adding backgrounds in Photoshop was not allowed, but I overcame this by instead adding a new foreground to one of John's secret Cornish locations, Port Wrinkle on Whitsand Bay. The foreground being in the back garden by the fish pond taken on my phone. I got to drink the beer later at lunchtime when we had a virtual pub outing using Zoom. Social Distancing. By Alan. Chrysanthemum by Isobel. Isobel just took the shot then lightened the image in post-production. Receiving 2 nomination. Salt and Pepper by John. John decided to use a blue and white linen basket as he was attracted by the parallel lines. Then he experimented with the position of the 2 pots. When he was satisfied with their position he placed the subject under a window to use natural backlighting. After trying various focus settings he finished up using f7.1 at 1/30th second and ISO 500. His camera was mounted on a tripod. After downloading into Lightroom and a few initial adjustment he went into Silver FX Pro so that he could bring out more contrast between the dark lines and the white. Receiving 3 nominations. Tomatoes by Julie. The image was taken in the kitchen on their electric hob. The camera was again Pentax 645Z with a 50mm lens on a tripod. Jules used their cheese grater with a red handle to match the color of the tomatoes. The wood was 2 pieces from outside, that will be used for firewood at some time. The lighting was done using a flash set at a low level and handheld. Processing was via Lightroom and Photoshop and included contrast, spot healing brush, dodge and burn, saturation, and sharpening. The inspiration for the shot came from images she has seen on the internet. Receiving 4 nominations. Chopped Onions by Phil. The image was taken in the kitchen on their electric hob. It seems that's where they do most of their still life photography. The camera was the Pentax 645Z with a 50mm lens on a tripod. Phil chopped the onion and created the composition so that the small pieces led you into the scene. The axe is one that they use for the small kindling for the fire. The lighting was with a flash set at a low-level handheld. Processing via Lightroom and Photoshop, spot healing brush, dodge and burn, saturation, contrast and sharpening. Next week is hand-in for Petit 7. This will be held as an online competition and Gary will send out the electronic voting forms. Thanks for watching.